Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about eliminating nasality from your voice. Now, in a previous video, to talk about getting out of vocal tension, one of the things I recommended was explicitly adding some nasality into your voice in order to force you out of your throat and into a more forward resonance. Now, of course, we don't want to be talking in nasal resonance for the rest of our lives because most people don't consider this to be the most attractive voice. Unless you're going to be singing like, over there, or something like that. You probably don't want to be talking like that, but you do want to have that forward resonance. So, how do you achieve that forward resonance without having that obnoxious nasal sound? Alright, so, that obnoxious nasal sound is caused by a drooping soft palate. Now, if you feel inside of your mouth, like you take your tongue and move it along the top of your mouth. You're going to hit your teeth, then you're going to hit the hard palate, and eventually you're going to hit this sort of spongy tissue that's toward your throat. That is what's called the soft palate. And when your soft palate is drooping downward, that is what forces the resonance into your nose instead of a more generalized resonance in your head into your mask, the sort of resonance that we really want to be having. And so the key to eliminating nasal resonance is as simple as raising your soft palate. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of direct conscious control over our soft palate. It's something that has to be done subconsciously or invoked into behaving the way that we want it to behave. And there's a few ways you can do that. So the traditional way that is typically taught in a lot of voice studios is to do the beginning of a yawn. So like something like that. And what you'll notice when you do the beginning of a yawn is a yawn actually raises the soft palate. So if you just think about going, oh, something like that, just simulate doing the beginning of a yawn and then immediately phonate. That high, sort of aristocratic sound is a sound that you produce when you have a very high soft palate. Now, speaking personally, unless you are sort of in a crowd of aristocratic New England types, you probably don't want to be talking with that extremely high soft palate tone, or else you're going to come across as very condescending. However, you want to have a sort of happy medium between those. You don't want it to be so low that you're talking in that really nasal voice, nor do you want it to be so high that it's like you're about to go on your yacht at Martha's Vineyard. But you want to be in that middle ground, right? You want to have a reasonable soft palate positioning. So you're going to need to experiment here. You're going to need to practice because you can do the beginning of a yawn and maybe you'll hit just the right spot right away. Or maybe it'll be too high, or maybe it still won't be high enough. So practice the beginning of a yawn and then try phonating and then try reducing, or changing the time at which you are articulating things. Just familiarize yourself with the feeling of that higher soft palate, and then experiment further with how you want to sound, what sort of sounds you are producing at various points and various levels of engagement of the highness of your soft palate and the beginning of that yawn feeling. Another thing that you can experiment with is doing something similar to the sipping through a straw that I talked about in the breath support video. So, do that breath, feel the cool air that is rushing into your mouth, over your soft palate, over your hard palate. And as you're doing that inhale, try and imagine, as you are inhaling, you're getting some lift in the back of your mouth, some lift in your throat, just visualize it, try to feel it, even imitate the body motions that I'm doing right here in this video. And immediately after doing that, try saying something and listen to how it affected your voice. And you probably want to experiment with recording yourself and playing it back while doing this. So, this is how I sound when I'm doing this right now. So my soft palate was a little bit higher. I've obviously practiced quite a bit of getting my soft palate into the area, the space that I want it to be in, so I pretty much naturally speak there. But when I did that just now, the soft palate was a little bit higher up. So you can experiment with it that way, experiment with the beginning of a yawn, and I would also encourage you to experiment with doing impressions. You can try doing a Peter Griffin impression where he has a very nasal resonance. Try doing a John Kerry impression where you have an exaggeratedly high soft palate. And experiment with moving your voice into different ways that you're not usually accustomed to expressing your voice and playing it back and toying with it. Now you need to be a little bit careful with this because you don't want to get yourself into a place where you are manufacturing a voice or always practicing what you think to be an impression of a sexy person or something like that. But what you do want to do is you want to have freedom. You want to be able to increase the range of expression of your voice and be able to access whatever expressions and sounds that you want to access whenever you need them, so that way you can use them for comic effect or expression or impassioned speeches or whatever it is that you're going for. So, practice the beginning of a yawn, practice sipping through a straw and feeling the cool air, imagine it lifting up the back of your mouth, and practice doing impressions and see what range of expressions you can achieve with that. And then once you've found a vocal tonality that feels comfortable and is no longer in that nasal resonance, practice doing that more and more. Do your monologue exercises in that. Practice speaking that way with your friends when you go out. Whatever is appropriate. And eventually, you want it to be habitual. The natural way that you speak, part of who you are.